Good evening. We're going to go ahead and call to order the May 7th, 2025 Citizens Advisory Committee. Should we do roll call, Dakota?
Alrighty. Committee Member Knight.
I'm here.
Committee Member Kester.
Here.
Chair Harrington.
Here.
Committee Member Minkoff.
In person.
Committee Member Terrell.
Here.
Vice Chair Barney.
Aki.
Committee Member Castillo-White.
Here.
Committee Member Rizzo.
Here.
Committee Member Stephenson.
Here.
Committee Member Stevens, I think he's excused.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm here online.
Oh, there you go. Alrighty.
From Texas.
And that's it.
Great. Looks like everybody's here. Do you want to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Yes. Move on to agenda item number 2. Any public comment on non-agenda items? And I'll start in the room first. We have visitors, but no comments. Anybody online?
Well, it's Paul Wilcox, Troutdale.
Yes, go ahead.
Just wanted to confirm that all the members saw my public comment in the packet. I'm not going to repeat it here.
Is that part of the packet? You guys are
That's
seeing?
why I was just looking.
It starts on this page where it says PAC, piece
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
That's the one follow.
Yeah, it's the first attachment after the minutes in the packet.
Oh, we have it. Thank you very much for calling that out. Great. Do you guys want to take the time now to read it, or?
Might not need to.
Okay, we will review that offline, thank you. Any other comments online? All right, so we're going to move on to agenda item number 3, review and approval of our March. It's been a minute since we met. Minutes, March 5th. Should be page 2 and 3 here.
Bless you. Thank you.
I move that we accept the March 5th, 2025 regular meeting minutes as presented.
I'll second that.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that moves. And we are on to discussion items, and our first one is the HLC Historic Boundary Update.
Aaron Jansen's chair of the HLC, and everybody knows Nick.
Hi, I'm Nick.
Yeah.
All right, this might be repeat information for anyone who's been following Planning Commission or is a part of HLC or has talked to me in the past month. But HLC, we've been working towards working on like a historic district boundary. And this is the first step of that. We just like to update you all as the Citizen Advisory Committee on what we're doing, just so there's some sort of cohesiveness in all the groups. So some background in how we got here. In the fall of 2024, staff presented a street topper concept to the HLC, consistent with our downtown area's tourism and visitor branding efforts. The committee liked the street topper concept, but it was thought that the design, which just reads historic Troutdale, was sort of like a blanket approach and didn't exactly capture a like specific place and timeline of Troutdale's history. So HLC, we discussed, and they wanted the street topper to call out a particular local historic district area, which, if you're familiar, Hungry Hill, it's Troutdale's first and second plat area, so first plat and first edition. And then staff members returned to HLC in late 2024 and stated that the committee's idea is feasible, but it takes some work because the city's current code, we don't really have criteria for determining and establishing a historic district. So we could be both getting in the weeds here and also being very broad, which are two strange things, but bear with me. So when we were trying to think of how to make a historic district, one, we realized in the code there's not a way to do that. So we're creating code to allow for the creation of a historic district. So this current part is not for the actual district, but to allow for the possibility of a district, if that tracks. Okay. We found in the purpose statements for historic landmark overlays in the code where there's an ability to identify, designate historic districts, but the code doesn't actually outline a procedure or process or how that gets done. There's just a broad purpose statement saying we can do this. So essentially in this code, there's 4 application types related to the Historic Landmark Commission. You'll notice there is not a application for designating a historic district. So we've been working on drafting code language in terms of like an amendment to allow for an application for a historic district. And just to let you know, like our next steps, what we plan to like do with this and our timeline, just so you guys are aware of what we're doing. Currently, we're in the process of approving some code language to amend the development code that creates criteria to establish historic districts. So what that looks like right now, we're at you guys kind of informing you all. We're gonna, as our own committee, approve like the language that we like. We'll go to Planning Commission in around springish, presenting the code amendment, hopefully get a recommendation and go to council around like late spring and summer. And then after that, once we have the actual language established in the code that allows us to make a district, then we'll start the process of actually making the district. And I think the reason for letting you all know is once we get to that step, obviously there's some like community engagement efforts and potential for just hearing and getting ideas. So we want to let you know like ahead of time, this could be coming towards you down the pipeline, and just to be vaguely aware of it, that it is a thing. That's really all I have for you guys. That's it.
Yes, Kevin.
Thank you. This is Kevin Minkoff. Is the designation of historic landmark areas solely a city endeavor? Is it a county? Is it a state? Is it federal? Or involve any of those or all of them?
Well, that's part of the process that we've encountered is that, and perhaps that we've bumped up against in the past, is that we do need to be, please Erica, correct me if I'm wrong, need to be a certified local government, a CLG. And so the city, while we had approval to do that, I think either pre or early COVID, somewhere we lost momentum on that with COVID, and the certified local government application never went in. And so luckily it was already approved, but we went back to council in January, got approved again by the current council, and then that's been submitted. And when do we expect a?
I just got the last resume not too long ago.
Oh, okay. So it hasn't
we
gone
are
in yet.
submitting.
Okay,
Yeah,
got
we have
it.
all the materials to submit.
So you have to, so in order for that to be official with the state, we have to be a certified local government.
Okay,
You know, if you're not registered with the state, I'm not sure how really official it would be. And also being the city being a certified local government, and the Historic Landmark Commission and creating a historic district can enable us the city to be a pass-through to some grants and other incentives for homeowners in the area. So it will be interesting if we're hopeful, I should say, that it might provide some opportunities.
2 other questions. Are you just looking at the town center as a historic area, or you're mapping all over Troutdale?
Well, we're looking at, as Nick referred to earlier, the first and second plats. Those were established, I believe, I want to say like 1894, 1895. I'm within a year either way on those. And so those are what we're looking at. I'm not sure when the other when the other things were platted out, other areas, but they would have to meet some other criteria to be historically significant. Not merely by age, but they would have to have some historic significance. And the Hungry Hill area is historically significant to to Troutdale because it was the first and second platted area early on. But also, are you familiar with the name, the Hungry Hill?
No.
It was
Personally,
when
no.
it was when the businesses in the downtown area, Swift Meats or the Woolery and the meat company, they would have quite a lot of workers. And also there were, I think, there were celery farms, and there was all this kind of industry in the lower area, the base of the hill. And I'll get to you in a minute, Walter, sorry. And when, at noontime, they would walk uphill to get to go home for lunch. And then obviously at the end of their day, same thing, they would have to walk up.
Uphill 257th? Or what is now 257th?
Yeah, up
whatever it
Buxton.
was.
Right, so
Oh,
they would have
from-
to walk from the
Which is
flatter
Old
area
Columbia
of
River
Troutdale.
Highway.
Right, and they would have to walk up the hill
I
to
see.
go home for meals, and so
Got
it
it.
became known as Hungry Hill.
Okay, so my other follow-up question was, or is, what's the timeline, do you think, for actually then being able to kind of finalize these, because of the application and then getting state approval and so on?
The
Just
CLG.
in general.
Erica, are you aware, or Nick, are either of you aware
I
of?
would say by the end of this year, we will have criteria in place in the development code. So once that is adopted by council, you have to wait 30 days for it to be enacted. And then the city could or the HLC can put in an application to be reviewed to actually have a historic district here in Troutdale. So I would say those 2 things could happen by the end of this year.
Okay, thank you.
Woodrow?
Hi, Woodrow, Troutdale. I'm not familiar with the geographic area of Hungry Hill. Where exactly, like, on a map, what would be like the outline of
Nick is gonna go.
the Hungry Hill?
Yeah, so this
Plat
is
1 and 2?
rough, so we're here to kind of tell you we're working on wanting to have a district instead of actually discussing the actual boundaries with you today, just to make that clear, but roughly, kind of this downtown area,
Okay,
excluding these parcels.
okay.
I think we're going to
8th Street.
Yeah. Yeah, so 8th to this side of Columbia goes down excludes these two end parcels, and just think if it goes, kind of, it encompasses this.
How far east?
Roughly.
Does
It
not-
cuts off, leave here.
Yeah, because like Troutdale Elementary is outside the boundary.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're looking at, I heard some signage and perhaps some grants might be available to the property owners.
We're
It could
hopeful,
be.
that's only through the certified local government, and I believe it's called the Main Street program.
And
So we're hopeful that we may be able to access some of that.
the signage is what kind of kickstarted this whole thing. Is initially HLC wanted to have sign toppers downtown, just saying, hey, this area is a historic area.
Right.
And as we were doing that, they wanted the term district to be displayed.
Okay.
But we thought using that particular term without the area being an actual district would be tricky.
Right.
So we've kind of gotten the weeds a little bit, and now we're making a district to get back to the signage, essentially.
And then is there any, in your research, have you heard of any economic advantages to some of the small businesses downtown? I mean, is there anything would be able to possibly help them at all with the district, or?
There can be. We are not intending for this district to have any regulatory actions or consequences associated with it. So you'd have like some districts, typically districts will, if you get in it, you have to have special approvals to do certain types of work, which would require like an additional public hearing to get approved by your historic commission. We're not proposing anything like that. I think it's more intended to be something for residents to take pride in their city and for tourists to kind of see that and go, oh, I didn't know this area was cherished by the residents like that.
And I think also to add on to that, I'm sure all of you can think of other small towns that have a historic area, and so people often refer to it then, oh, you go to the historic part of downtown, or there's historic XYZ town. And so it starts to become synonymous with the town, and I think that can become a real attraction and desirable attribute for our downtown area.
Would this also be included like in a registry somewhere? Is there like a registry of historic designations or something like that, or?
There's one that the state has right now. We're viewing this as a local district. And if we get like traction and motivation and citizens like it, we could explore what it looks like to be like a state recognized district. But right now we're just thinking local.
It seems like that might draw even more tourists in, from an economic perspective.
Shelby?
Ms. Shelby, I just was wondering if you've actually checked with residents. Are they really excited about this idea? All these residents that live in this area. I mean,
Yes and no. So through the years, we've conducted numerous surveys, and I would say prior to COVID, we did pretty extensive outreach and held public open community meetings and trying to get people's thoughts. And we had a lot of support at the time for the historic district, providing that it didn't, and as Nick said, we're not trying to add any kind of fees to anyone. We're not trying to add any type of regulation to anyone. I will say, as a historic property owner and as the chair of the HLC, we'd love to see more people with historic properties apply and gain historic landmark status locally with the city of Troutdale. But it's certainly not mandated, and it's really about marking those boundaries, getting sign toppers to kind of hopefully enhance the area culturally, and raise people's awareness about the historic district area.
So not at this time, where we are in the process of just creating the code language, but as we're go through and like really work on what the actual application for the district will look like, we are open to any ideas you guys could think of for like citizen engagement or anything like that.
The thing is, I just would, if I owned a piece of property that was in those boundaries and I had not heard about it,
Might be, yeah.
I might be alarmed, I might be happy and I might be alarmed. I'm not sure which way.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool, or, oh gosh, does that mean more stuff, more
Right,
problems?
right.
I can't do anything.
Yes, yeah.
So-
So there, that's gonna be part of the outreach when we
Okay.
go farther, is to explain that, to
Okay.
assuage any kind of fears about that, because no, it's not going to assign any kind of fees or restrict, but add any additional restrictions on people at all. Right.
Kevin?
Yes, Kevin Minkoff again, thank you. Have you done any exploration on what the downsides of creating a historic district might be? It came up when Woodrow, I don't know, I keep wanting to call you Terrell, Woodrow,
It's okay, Minkoff.
Wilson, yeah, that, exactly, or like in junior high, Ming. But anyway, because when Woodrow brought up the issue of, is it gonna create any benefits for downtown businesses, I also wonder, a historic district may unintentionally create restrictions on the business community, because it could, even though you're not seeking it now, in the future,
Can you
could it
explain
be?
how?
Well,
I'm
in a
very
historic
curious.
district, you're not allowed to, it may have further building or design limitations, potentially more than, I'm no expert in this, it's just something that popped up in my head. Is it something that you had looked at? But what I'm concerned about is any unintended negative consequences as a result of, maybe there are additional, like I said, I'm saying, additional building design restrictions over and above the local building code. Certainly, everyone is obligated to follow our current building codes. But a historic district may pen people in even further. Maybe, I don't know.
Interesting.
Many districts in the state of Oregon do what you're saying, where if you're in the district, there are additional regulations that you have to go through. What we're proposing would have truly no regulations tied to it. It's just a boundary we're outlining and sign toppers we'd like to put. Unrelated, we do have a historic landmark designation process where an owner can opt in. No one's forcing the owner to do this. This would be on the owner's free will, saying, I'd like to be a part of that process and designate my property as historic. If they go through that process, HLC would review their application and either approve or deny it based on criteria. And then they would have additional criteria if they want to do exterior renovations or something. But just being in the district would not make your property designated as a landmark by our code, so you wouldn't have any of those to worry about. So as long as you, the property owner in this district, do not opt in for our application to be a historic landmark, which is an entirely different process, you'll have nothing to worry about.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, yes.
Hey, Diane Castillo-White, I'm also on the Historic Landmarks Committee, and one thing we're also gonna do is, people really enjoy the history of Troutdale. Erin Chair happens to own the church, in case nobody knew that, in downtown, which is just a nice side note. But we're also talking about doing some informational signage. So when we're talking Hungry Hill, it's just an added attraction for people to be, the locals to get to know their history, visitors to also just a little bit, another rich nugget about, because who is the person that created the plat as well?
It was Harlow's wife, I think.
Yes.
Okay, see, so there's also, that's also of interest as
Yeah,
well.
Laura, I think Laura Harlow?
So we'll have all that information.
Celeste.
Celeste, okay, there we go,
Yeah.
yeah. So,
Celestia.
yeah.
Yes, thank you.
So we're just adding more enrichment, more knowledge, more information, and, you know, especially since we're gonna be doing the Sandy River front, there's gonna be a lot of signage, we're gonna let people know about the area, the natives, the flora, et cetera, so it's just tying in with that, so if you're taking in a tour around Troutdale, or just looking around, you're gonna be more informed.
That's wonderful. That was actually one of my questions is, when I've been to historic landmarks before, sometimes they have wonderful little maps for taking a walking tour. So you can see those points of interest as you're moving through. Is that something you guys have already, or maybe something?
Yes, those were created several years ago in conjunction with the art community. Can you help me with that? That was,
Is that with, oh shoot, I'm not sure, I just joined last year, but I think, is it with the,
yeah,
Yeah.
with the Troutdale Arts Center. They
TAC.
developed a walking map of historic sites in the downtown area.
So, will the trout ponds be part of this?
Are they, I believe they're on the walking map.
Okay, because I don't know if because they're kind
Yeah.
of further east.
Yeah, they are, that is not in the boundary of
It'd be really
of the
cool
historic
if it
district.
were.
Yeah, it would, but it's not, sorry.
And then you're talking about the signs on top of the street signs, right? What about doing something with the basket holders, you know, the little trouts that are in there? I'm talking about a nice picture, the light post downtown. And today they were hanging the baskets, you know, flowers.
Okay,
Well, there's a bracket on there. And it's not just your standard little L bracket, it's got this cool trout in there, right? Very unique to our fine city. But this could be something, again, if we align it with the historic light posts, the historic trout brackets, and your historic signage, just tie it all together.
this is Diane, luckily we have Marley and Erica. Marley is our economic development.
She's professional.
actually, you know what, you two are
photographer.
kind of two peas in a pod, actually.
Are we? Okay, so we have a visionary,
Good.
which we're lucky, and then she helps with the cohesiveness of not overdoing signage.
Okay.
That's why we had long extensive discussions about what's the sign, what does it look like, what is highlighted,
Woodrow,
et
that's
cetera.
why it's already taken us like 6 years to get here, okay? We're not.
Me and I'm cool with that.
Guess I just had more like a couple clarifying questions. So you referred to it being like the first platted area and stuff like that. I was wondering, what does that mean?
The first area that was designed to have, that was actually divided and subdivided in for home sites. Yeah,
So literally the first part of Troutdale that you could like buy plats to like put homes on or
or
businesses.
lots, imagine lots, easier.
The first subdivided area.
Yeah.
And I think I already know the answer to this question, but so does that mean that within this Hungry Hill area, there would be like signs that explain, hey, this area is historic and here's why?
Yeah, yes, and Diane brought that up, of that, yeah, there will be a couple signs, and that hasn't been determined where exactly they will be. We've talked about it in generalities, but there will be a couple different signs located in the public, you know, along the public right of way that people on a walking area could easily see and pull over and read and understand why the historic district is named what it is and how long it's been there and all of that.
And when we get to that process of determining like the aesthetic of the sign, where they're located, all that good stuff, we'd of course like love to involve you all when we get to that, but that is a bit down the road. We're getting into some details we have not figured out yet, and they're all great questions, but just to be clear, we will get there and certainly involve you all. So nothing will be occurring where you'll be going downtown thinking, what did that happen? Or did they not talk to anybody? We will absolutely involve people.
I think that's really cool. Thank you.
All right, I don't see anybody online. Any public comment on this? All right, thank you guys.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Right, looks like our next agenda item is Erica Palmer, CFBC update.
Hold on one second.
In a second, just kidding.
Okay, here we are. Sorry about that. I had too many screens up on my computer. Working too hard. All right. I'm Erica Palmer, Community Development Director for the city. I am here this evening to talk about the climate-friendly, equitable communities rulemaking and state mandates that the city needs to adopt in our development code and also our city municipal code. I think I may have come to the CAC maybe earlier this, actually, it would have been in last year, in 2024, to kind of talk about this update that we're going through. So tonight, the goals is to provide you an update on the amendment package that's going to be going to Planning Commission and City Council this month and next month. And then to also provide all of you the next steps on that process, so you can direct community members to where they need to go to find additional information. So what is the climate-friendly, equitable communities rulemaking? It's a program that administers new rules set by the state of Oregon. It all has to do with parking reform. And these rules aim to reduce pollution, promote equitable land use planning, increase housing choices, and create more equitable outcomes for all Oregonians. Now, that is language that we can all debate, but that comes directly from, the state of Oregon, and that's why they put out these rules. The parking reforms have come in two phases. Some reforms went into effect already in 2022, and then some parking reforms went into effect in 2023. But the city of Troutdale, we received an extension from the state of Oregon to adopt these new rules, and we need to adopt them by June 30th of this year. So what are these new rules? When we talk about parking reform and what that would mean and look like in our code, we can't have any parking space minimums for certain uses. And this slide up here reflects some of those uses. Those uses include affordable housing, and there's a definition for what affordable housing is, and that comes from the state. Residential units that are smaller than 500 square feet, single room occupancies, childcare facilities, and facilities that house people with disabilities and or in treatment. And then we also can't mandate new housing to have garages or carports, but of course, what we are seeing is developers are still putting in garages and carports because that's what people desire. And what we're also seeing is that even though the state has these new mandates that are not requiring, minimum parking spaces, you're still seeing developers put in that parking because they know that if you put in, let's just say, a supermarket, you're gonna need parking. So we're seeing a lot of that, happen. So we're looking at if you're a multifamily development, that means you're creating 5 or more housing units. A developer would also need to put in electrical conduit for EV charging for at least 40% of the parking spaces provided. We have to have some standards that make the conversion of existing parking lots that are underutilized a little bit easier for people to transition into different uses. And then we can't have any parking minimums within a half mile of frequent transit. And so what that means is that the corridor for line 77, 71?
77.
77, thank you. For line 77, that goes down Halsey and then turns and goes into the industrial area. We can't have any parking within a half mile, or we can't require parking minimums within a half mile of that corridor. But in all fairness, here in Troutdale, a lot of those lots are already developed. I want to say over 95% of the lots in that corridor area are already developed. There are some other bigger policy questions for the Planning Commission and City Council to consider in these parking reforms. And the state gave the cities some options. And the first option would just to implement these rules is just repeal all parking minimums citywide. And we presented that option to the Planning Commission last year, and the Planning Commission, we don't think that's the best option for Troutdale. And then we looked at option number 2, which was what we call the fair policies option. And they kind of list a menu of certain things that the city can adopt. And the city would need to implement at least 2 of these menu options to be compliant with the state. And we looked at these options, and we looked at, let's just say number 4, tax on a commercial parking lot. We don't have a commercial parking lot yet here, not yet anyway, in the city of Troutdale, and we may never get one. But we asked the state, could we come up with a program that could implement that in the future? And would that check the box? And the state of Oregon said yes. And then we looked at the flexible commute benefits. And this would apply to businesses here in Troutdale that employ 50 or more employees. And if any of their employees, if they don't use a parking spot when they come to work, so that means they are either taking transit full-time, walking full-time, biking full-time, or doing some kind of transit mode share to get them to work, then their employer would have to pay them a monthly stipend of $50. We reached out to businesses here in Troutdale. Last year, there's about 17 businesses here in Troutdale that employed 50 or more people. And we heard back from about half of those businesses. And half of those businesses said they had 1 or 0 people taking public transit every day or getting to work through an alternative mode of transportation. So when we looked at that analysis, Planning Commission thought, hey, this would probably be another option that the city could choose. And so they wanted to move forward with this option. And then the third option was reducing red tape for additional uses, not to have parking minimums. And Planning Commission, they looked at this option and they weren't necessarily enthused about creating less options for parking throughout the city. So like I said, they decided to go with option 2, And out of those menu items, we're looking at implementation of number 3 and number 4 for the community. So next steps here. The Planning Commission next week will hold their first hearing on this amendment package. That public hearing starts at 7 o'clock in this room next Wednesday, and we will be taking public testimony. And then whatever recommendation City Council makes, that recommendation will go to City Council, and City Council will hold their first reading on an ordinance for implementation on June 10th, and then the second reading on June 24th. And I have a typo on that slide. I'm just noticing. And at all hearings,
it's not gonna happen.
So during the hearings process, for each hearing, we will take public testimony. And like I said, these are state mandated, guidelines. Planning Commission has worked really hard this past year to, find the different ways and the different strategies to, make these new parking reforms, to have like the least amount of impacts to Troutdale residents. So with that, I can answer any questions that you may have.
So actually I have one kind of very minor question and then a more significant one. Is there a sort of a known definition of commercial parking lot? Because I think one of the things that's sort of been batted around more than once is potentially charging for parking down at Glen Auto. And if the city decided to do that, would that lot then qualify as a commercial parking lot?
It does not.
Okay,
And then we do have a definition.
yeah, I figured there was, but I was just sort of curious how that would fit in.
Yeah.
And then my other question is, since this whole process has gone on for some time now, is there, within city staff, is there any strategizing happening as far as sort of public communications on this? Because as you so effectively put it, these are state mandates. To a large extent, we're making the best out of it that we can, but to a very significant extent, the city's hands are tied on this. And while many of us and large chunks of the city are not really happy about the direction this is going, effective communications of the extent to which we can't really do anything about it is gonna be really important. Because we wanna make sure that people are aware who is making these decisions, and for lack of a better term, redirecting local rage in the direction of Salem rather than to Troutdale.
Correct. Great point, Adrian. So I know that the Champion just came out last week, and we do have an article in the Champion that just came out that talks about this process and what the reforms are, and it does talk about how they're state mandated, and how the Planning Commission has been working on choosing the best options that would have the least amount of impacts to the Troutdale community. So we put out some engagement effort in that. We do have a page on our website about this program that also talks about, how this is this is all coming down from the state. When I get calls, and people are upset, I do direct them to, Salem and our representatives, and yeah. And it's not just Troutdale, it's communities throughout the state of Oregon. It's all communities within the metro area, the city of Ashland, Medford, Roseburg, Eugene, Salem, Kaiser. They're all dealing with the same amendments that are coming to Troutdale, and they're having to make their own choices.
Any other questions? Oh, yes, Chris.
So this isn't really a significant detail, but I just wanted to clarify something that I haven't understood admittedly. On that slide with the 5 different options I had to choose from, I was trying to understand what number 5 means, because I don't know how you can have less than 1 parking spot.
Yeah, so in a multifamily development, so multifamily means you're gonna have 5 or more housing units. And so with those 5 or more housing units, each unit would get 0.5. And then you round up or down. Typically you round up, sorry, not down when it comes to parking. So if you had a development that had 5 units, which is considered multifamily, you would have at least a minimum of 3 parking spaces per this 0.5
Right
space
now-
unit for multifamily.
Right now, what would be the minimum, or what is the minimum?
Is it, I think
it's like 1.5.
I think it's 1.
1.5, so if you had a 5-unit development, then it's gonna have to be 7, 8, I guess, rounding up.
Mm-hmm.
I
8.
can check real quick.
So that's the difference. What they're saying is you'd go from 8 to 3.
It just doesn't make sense.
2, sorry. Minimum right now for multifamily dwelling is 2 spaces per unit plus 1 space per 3 units for guest parking.
And I do want to let this committee know too, and planning commission also knows this, is that our current parking standards in our code, we do have them like online, and we have a sheet that says recommended, parking calculations for your different uses. And when we have pre-application conferences, we let people know, hey, these city staff recommends these amounts of parking spaces and not necessarily what's in our code due to the state changes. So we're letting folks know through the pre-application phase what has worked for Troutdale over the last 30 years plus.
What I can say, and I can speak for all of us staff, is whenever we have a pre-app and we mention technically, no parking required in this area, it's not a yippee from a developer, it's a, well, can I still provide? And
Yes.
that's when we say, we would actually recommend this. Because a lot of them realize, well, how is anybody gonna rent this unit I'm building if they don't have anywhere to park? So we're seeing much the opposite, but it's not we just can't require. So.
I'm just gonna make a comment, I think that's part of the livability of Troutdale, is that we have had high parking standards, and the state is tying our hands and saying, no, we will not. So it's unfortunate that it's added, it hurts our livability, but thank goodness developers recognize the need.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And the planning commission also opted not to pick that one
Yes.
because they felt it was too restrictive, much too restrictive.
right. And be thankful for our planning commission.
Any other comments? I don't see anything online. Well, thank you so much, and thank you for advocating for our citizens and livability of our city.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, up next, our last discussion item is the CAC charter and adoption. So, a
Actually, to that point now?
long time ago.
Finally?
2 years, we started the process of creating our charter, and 2 months ago now?
Something like
probably?
that, yeah, when we took it in front of council and then went and talked to planning and got all the feedback and
Yeah,
the general consensus seems to be, hey, this is a fantastic idea, go do it.
and so we feel like we have the feedback we need, and that we thought we wanted to have before moving forward, so, wanted to just put that out there for discussion and see, kind of where this group felt, if we're ready to adopt.
We had it in the previous.
Yeah, it was in the one, it was in the last packet.
Yes, Chris,
I guess I'll move to approve it.
should I have a second?
I'll second.
Oh, thanks, Victoria. Over here.
Right up there.
All right, great. So for adoption, can we just do a yay, or do we have to do roll call? All right.
Yeah, it's, I think we don't have to do the yays, we don't have to do the yays in CAC or like HLC, but I think it's more of a city council type deal,
Okay.
So we could just do motion on the table, it was second in, it can be a yay or a nay, like all in favor.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye,
Aye.
yay, aye.
Any opposed?
No, I wasn't opposing.
Oh, I see you as
We
opposed.
can't
I
see
just
them.
had, we're already saying aye. I'm voting aye, yay.
I see a thumbs up from
From Frank.
Will and Frank.
Okay.
Okay,
We're all good.
all right. We did it, guys.
Okay, it's officially adopted.
Amazing. Give a committee 2 years.
I think we deserve a pizza party.
Yeah.
Next
so,
meeting,
yes.
half
Thank
an
you,
hour
Adrian.
before. I mean, this is a monumental occasion.
So next steps, I will update the charter with the date of adoption, and then we'll get it uploaded online, right there on our page, and it'll be there, the CAC charter will be involved there as well.
Terrific.
Thank
So
you.
congratulations, you all, it was a long fight, a lot of information, was tossed around, but I think everybody should pat themselves on the back for really deciphering all of that and coming through with a great document, so nice job.
Dakota, when that gets posted online, can you also just sort of send a final copy of it out to all
Yep.
the committee members?
Yep, yeah, the final one with the date, because nothing's changed other than the date, but I'll send it out to everyone as well, so that way everybody has it, so. And that'll be part of the, what's the word I'm looking for, onboarding for new members that come on, that'll be one of the documents they get to is that charter from here on out.
Coming up.
Yeah.
Yep, which is coming up soon.
So yes, good job, and that was a process, but I did learn a lot, so hopefully you guys did also. Okay, any comment online regarding that? Not seeing anyone, so we will move on to staff communications.
Alrighty, well, hello everyone, I'm back now. While I have been working, this is my first week in the office, so I just got back on Tuesday was my first day in, so yesterday, hitting the ground running. First and foremost, we have as Erica had mentioned, we have CFEC going to Planning Commission next week for initiation. She gave you all the information really for that, so I'm not gonna go into too much more detail, because you already got the spiel. Also going to Planning Commission next week is a conditional use for a childcare facility off 257th. The applicant has requested to extend or continue the hearing to a date certain of July 9th, I believe. They're still working on a couple of requirements for the county that they need in order for the county to write their comments for our staff report to bring to Planning Commission. So we will open the hearing and then continue it. There won't be a staff report, it's just very much, hey, they asked for an extension, we received their 120-day, and come July 9th, we will have the full packet for Planning Commission. And that information will then be updated online and so on and so forth. Other than that, most of our projects we have in right now are relatively smaller projects. Currently working on a completeness review for a site development review and a consolidated application for site development review and lot line adjustment. For property line adjustment will separate the lots with a new development going in on the newly created lot. That's still under completeness review. Couple property line adjustments, very minor. Do you have anything since you're here?
Oh, sure.
I just wondering if you have any projects that are.
We have a pre-app going for Public Works, the Beaver Creek Bridge that's been out for so long. We're doing our first steps on providing them with like what they'd have to do to be like floodplain compliant over there. That's pretty neat. I know that's been like a long time coming.
pretty small projects. I know we had a lot right at the start of the year, and then most of our projects are long-term, kind of right now, as you see with CFAC and HLC. The other one is the grant project that I've been mentioning a lot, that will be coming here for the Main Streets on Halsey design standards, kind of we call it the corridor code update. We selected our consultant. We're going through MIG or MIG. The city's worked with them several times before on other projects. They're aware of how this project went kind of last time, and it was the 3 cities involved. This is very different now. We want to focus on Troutdale as a whole. Troutdale as this specific corridor. So we had our kickoff meeting with them last week. It went very well. They have a great understanding of our code, a great understanding of what we're looking to get out of this, and they also have kind of their timeline and meshes well with ours. And with that is going to be a lot of community outreach, because we do want to hear the public on this. And from what I understand, doing research on the past project, since it was done prior to me being here, there wasn't a whole lot of that, or at least the community didn't feel like that. So we really want to, since this is just our code amendment, we will be really doing a lot of community outreach. We'll be coming here, TCAB, and then also doing our best to reach out and work with businesses. And when the time comes, I want to speak with you all a little bit more about kind of one of those meetings, one of those citizen or community engagement meetings, having the CAC kind of take the head on that one and see, because I want to get the first ideas back, and then how can we reach out to the broader community about what we're proposing along the Halsey corridor. So right now we're thinking design standards, setbacks, things of that nature, to kind of pull the feel of downtown out along our corridor, kind of extending that feeling along the corridor instead of having it stop at 257. That's kind of the idea. We want to get feedback and see how that goes. Of course, we have a long way to go. More than likely, this project won't be wrapped up until January, February next year is when we're hoping to get the approval from City Council. So we have a long process, but through that process, there's going to be several meetings, and I'll be talking about it. Any update I ever have, it might not be the large citizen engagement, but I see you all once a month, so I will constantly be bringing any updates I have, presentations and so forth to you all to pull feedback.
Does this include sidewalks all the way out there?
That's a part of the streetscape.
Okay.
That was completed. I know Marley was working on that one. I know that was completed. Now I think it's more about funding. And yes, the streetscape, because this is kind of a piggyback on that, without going too in the weeds. Back when we had the Halsey corridor, the 3-city corridor design standards and code amendment package, it started in, I think, 2017, and was put off and then kind of brought to myself when we got here to wrap it up. And so I had to do a lot of history on why was it prolonged, what's going on. Went to Planning Commission, heard the feedback, definitely no. Cool, we can deny it. We had to go through the process to go through City Council to deny that. But what we did hear is from feedback from Planning Commission is while they didn't like the overall package, that they couldn't approve that package, there were some thoughts that were in there that we would like to expand on. And that's why now we are, okay, that package is done. We're coming in with fresh ideas. And we know we heard from Planning Commission once, you like this and maybe this. So how about we now focus on the whole corridor, and how can we take those small ideas and expand on them to really make it our footprint, it's for the city. So this is kind of perfect timing to piggyback off the streetscapes for Halsey corridor, because those were all wrapped up, and now we are going to come through with more development side, and how we can change the look of it moving forward.
So this is probably a bit of a silly question, but because I absolutely value the goal and the effort for the design standards and being able to extend the town center feel down Halsey. But I guess my question is this: how much actual developable territory is in the Troutdale-Halsey corridor that isn't Edgefield?
And that's a great question, not a ton. We do have some opportunity sites that are listed out in the town center plan that do reach out there. One of the large ones is a part of Edgefield. But this is more for example, we're just gonna say, I'll just focus on design standards. And like one of the opportunity sites down there is also the ODOT. Will they be selling it? Will they be getting rid of it to develop? They don't really use it. We don't know. We don't have any control over that. However, if they ever do, and someone goes to develop, now they have standards they have to meet of how it's going to look from the street. They can build, it's mixed use. So they can build mixed use with commercial down, but it won't look super modern where downtown still has that kind of small town rustic feel. We want to have those design standards so it feels the same when things do redevelop going down the halls. You have entrances set back from having maybe corner entrances set back with steps, so it still has that older feel of kind of what our downtown does have, almost in my mindset, kind of that Western, Main Street type feel. So that's kind of what we're looking to do, where we can't control whatever develops there, but in the future when things inevitably develop, people inevitably sell, the corner of 257th and Halsey right now, it's a vacant lot. If something ever ends up going in there, now we'll have design standards for what it has to look like, rather than we don't have specific design standards for that area. They just have to meet our base development standards. So they'd have to meet the base development standards and design standards that are set up to that.
It's like, the main reason I asked that question is because there's potentially a perception that staff and the city as a whole is spending a lot of time on this and a lot of effort on this when there's not much property that it could potentially affect. And there's being able to effectively communicate, is this a worthwhile use of time and city dollars for when most of it is already developed? Personally, I think the answer to that is yes, but making sure that is clear and that it's communicated as an effective use of our time and dollars.
Great feedback, because that's something, that you could look at it and say, what's the point, But really, as planners, we're not just looking at the today and what comes in for development and make sure it's good to go and meets our code. We're also trying to look for the 10, 15, 20, 30 years into the future. And we want to still have what Troutdale holds near and dear still shine through in the future and not get lost somewhere along the way. That's why we have, our comprehensive plans and things like that. So this is not a comprehensive plan, but it's a design standard. For example, when I used to work in Hillsborough, there were specific design standards depending on where you were at, that you had to meet these standards if you're going to be in the downtown. If you're going to redevelop, and that could mean if you're just coming in to paint, you bought a property, you're a new business coming in, you want to paint, you need colors. We have that for our downtown right now. We don't have it as it crosses over 257. So just kind of having those standards for an area, since we do have an overlay, our town center overlay, trying to just kind of expand that feel, because that's more the commercial area, mixed use, rather than just residential. So that's really what we're looking for. And I think that's a great point. That's why we have to get that across during this this public engagement, to really say, hey, it might not seem like it now, but inevitably, if Edgefield wants to develop those sections, they now have to meet said standards if we get them done. So they might own it, but they have to meet what our code says. So I think that's the things that come into develop, and that's where we want to look down the long-term future and see how we can continue the feel that we have, the essence of Troutdale, all the way into the distant future. Any other questions on that?
Well, on that particular project.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's all I had for the initial things that are the big topics coming right now, so.
What's this, I see Sandy River Recreation Area, that's different than the Confluence development
This is.
project?
So
I'm curious about what's happening with the Confluence project. That's just on flat out hold?
But I'm not entirely sure.
I'll fill you in a minute.
I was like, yeah, Rizzo would know, and then Erica would have known.
Oh, okay.
And those that are on the TCAP would have a pretty good idea, so if anyone wanted to answer
And
that.
well,
And Will, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, our TCAP chair.
Yeah, TCAP chair's right here.
We have one applicant, and we tweaked our questions that will be asked for the initial interview with TCAP. That will include 2 counselors as well, and I forget what else that
the
discussion is.
interviews are tentatively set for the 15th. And then on, what was it, the 29th? If we go with it, then we're gonna decide if it goes to city council or not. But like she said, we just did have one applicant. But, I don't know, it could be good, we'll see how the interview goes.
Yeah. One thing that came up, I mean, if you go back and watch any of the TCAP videos, I mean, you could, and I'm pretty sure the RFQ packet is online.
It is online,
Yeah.
somewhere. So if you wanna see the proposal or the RFQ response, and the wording there is important, because what we asked for was a request for qualifications, not a request for proposal. So it was stated many times that everything that you see in the packet with regards to design and what it looks like is probably going to change a not insignificant amount. So short answer is we have a potential developer, but it's very early days.
Okay, thank you.
And it is said in there that they're gonna take public comment and want the community to get involved,
Outreach will happen.
so.
I would know more, but I missed our planning meeting last week. So usually Erica
And
updates us on that.
I think when they decide if that's the day of the interviews, I think you can listen to them. But we can't ask questions, we have a committee to do that.
All right, well, thank you, Dakota. Looks like we,
Yes.
The gym,
oh, yeah.
Yes. So as far as I know you've been in the office, we haven't heard anything from them.
I haven't seen anybody there.
No, they have, as last I heard, I think what I mentioned a couple is that there's been like a stop work order, not from the city, but from the developer. They are, fighting out some issues that they have with move, and that's, no one's been in there in a year, I think, working. I don't think anybody's been in there in a year working, so.
Truly no updates.
Yeah, we haven't heard anything. I did overhear yesterday, one of our building techs say they got a call from Move, but it must not have been much because they didn't tell us. So it has nothing to do, they don't have any, all their building permits are expired, so they would have to come in for new building permits, and the current name on the current applicant on the building permit is their contractor, who's currently not talking with Move, so nothing is going on with that right now at all.
I saw a news article about an industrial waste facility coming to Troutdale. Anything about that?
Oh, yeah.
I have not heard of this.
It's on the north, it's in the industrial area. What was, the article was Metro was seeking public comment for this industrial waste processing facility, all non-hazardous stuff is what they're talking about.
So I may know something about that. Several months ago, I was speaking with someone that we currently do have an industrial kind of waste processor down there. They've been working for some years. I think they've been down there for 10, 15 years or something like that. And Metro has different regulations now. So they're talking with them, Metro they wanted to make sure that what they were doing is permitted use, it is permitted. They've been in business, but Metro needed to get a lot of documents from them. And now Metro, because they have different regulations on what can come in and out of the Metro district, and how it has to be transferred. And so I spoke with them a while. If it is the same place, I'm not entirely sure. I'm assuming, because I think we only have one.
Ingenium is the name of the company.
Yes, yeah, so they've been here for quite a while. It's just Metro now has different regulations for what is considered waste and how it has to be hauled in and out of Metro district, so.
Because part of the article was there went in public input, but then you needed to buy a subscription to the business magazine to do that. Thought that was,
But at least we'll only give them one parking space.
one.
That's it.
Or
So,
one dump truck.
one dump truck.
Research it up.
I was wondering about the old city hall, away days, I know they went away, but do you know anything what's happening?
I know right after that, the article came out, I know I was quoted for, don't know why. I never spoke to anybody for a quote, so I don't know where that came from. That's a whole nother thing. But as we did get a couple of calls from a couple of different breweries that were interested, and we've been putting them in contact, planning staff has been putting them in contact with Marley. And that was really that week, and I haven't heard anything else since. I know the city is still planning on trying to find a brewer to come in, because while the work is not complete, the work that has been done is for a brewery to come in there. It's designed, it's been partially built out, so they're looking for another brewery to come in, finish it, and have another actual brewery in town. So, but we haven't heard anything on that, at least I haven't heard anything on that in 3 months.
Yeah, I think it's the same.
Yeah.
I was talking to Eric about it like last week, and it's like no update.
No update, no.
I had heard that 1,000 acres was maybe gonna get cleared out this month. Have you heard anything about that?
I have not, because that's county, so I'm not
Okay.
sure. I know they've been trying to work on projects throughout the county, but I'm not
Isn't
sure.
that actually federal?
it just,
Or
Is it
it's
state?
State, something.
States, I know
Oh, state?
state's doing a large
I know
cleanup.
Ray had mentioned it, and then also, there was somebody who came to our house for some other interesting reason, but he works there, and he said also it was gonna get cleared out. I'm just very concerned about it for TCAP purposes.
Cleared out meaning homeless people, or what do you, yeah.
So I just didn't know. if
I heard
you
it
heard
already
anything.
started to get cleared out. That they already started clearing it out.
Okay.
I know that could be part of the larger state plan that, I know, because like south of Bend, between Bend and LaPine, they're cleaning out, that's all federal land that they're cleaning out as well, so I think it's a larger state project. Not entirely, I have not heard about it, we don't have any updates on that as far as planning, we haven't been informed. If anything, anybody might know, Jonah might, for parks, but again, since that's not within our jurisdiction, we probably won't, they don't really inform
One
us a
last
whole lot.
question. So I haven't heard much public outreach on parking for Glen Auto Park. Do you have any idea what the proposal is, how much? What do the residents get a pass? What about nonprofits? What, Boy Scouts, Alcohol Anonymous, meetings, et cetera?
I have not, that's all been done through Public Works.
Okay.
So I know Erica's involved, has been in those discussions, but as far as Nick and I, we have not been involved. So I was informed kind of on a whim too that, oh yeah, we are getting it, we're moving forward with that. So I had no idea that was actually happening, because that's more of a high level thing that's going through Public Works as the primary, they're handling all of that.
Yeah, I'm just
so.
concerned about that as far as public outreach, public comment.
Mhm.
That it is one of our endeared parks. I understand there's some constraints with Sugar Pine being so hugely regionally and statewide. Yeah, but I'm concerned about no public input
Mhm.
and no public outreach.
Last I heard, I thought they were, before it was going to occur, they were going to do some public outreach, but I have no idea on a timeline. But that's a good point that we can bring up with Travis.
When I'm at Parks, I'll find out more and bring it back to the next meeting.
That'd be great. Thank you, Rizzo.
Yeah, it says they're gonna start this summer in the Champion, so. But I'll ask.
The parking lot was closed, yesterday, today?
For striping.
I didn't see any new stripes on it when I went by just now.
I think it was, yeah.
Shelby.
I was just gonna go back to 1,000 Acres, though. I think that Frank Stevens might be able to give us a presentation at Public Safety, and he talked about the different entities that own stuff in.
Oh, yeah.
1,000
It's an
Acres.
alphabet soup.
It is. It's Division of State Lands, I think Metro has the
I'm
Forest Department. So anyhow, he could, if you guys really wanted, Eric, we'd ask him, and he would tell you all about 1,000 Acres.
I was just concerned about the cleaning, if it was actually in progress.
And we can find out about that, we'll ask the captain,
Oh, yeah.
Montgomery County tomorrow, and he'll tell us. We'll bring that back too.
There we go. All right, let's,
One other quick question for Dakota, because it looks like the construction across the street at that little threeplex housing thing is stalled out again. Do you know anything about that?
They have their, I'm trying to remember if that's the same one. I know they have their building permits in and they're going through review. They just did their initial public works permits. So now they're going through the building. So before they break ground for the actual construction, they have to get their building permits all settled. So I know they have a couple rounds of revisions and things like that, but the initial construction was all for the utilities and stuff, so.
And I'm sorry, one last thing, because I went down Buxton last week Wednesday, and I had my 6-year-old grandchild with me. And as I got to the bottom of the hill, so I could take a ride on Historic Highway, what everybody was doing was so confusing. I almost missed the little kid, the short little kid that was crossing the street in front of me, because somebody else was gonna let me go, but they already had arrived first to head east on Historic Columbia River Highway. And I don't know how many times, because I live there, I mean, I use that almost every day, and my grandkid said, "You almost hit him." And I go, "Oh my God," I played it off. I was like, "No, Grandma, Gima was looking everywhere," but it really freaked me out. So I don't know when we're gonna address that. Even like I had another neat meeting, maybe I talked to Erica about Otto's Meat Market, when somebody's gonna cross, they hold this big orange flag. She said she lives near there, and then they go across. It's like another little thing, like, "Hey, see me?" But when they're crossing there, when you're trying to look which car's first, okay, these guys aren't taking their up Buxton like they're allowed to. It's just so confusing, and we're entering tourist season as well. We alleviated some issues with the Corbett people with the Stark Street Bridge reopening, but that one scared me, because I see it and I go, okay, this is dangerous, 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 and then it's like, I didn't see the kid. I did not see the kid. He was in the road. And so.
With the cars parked there.
And it would be a huge deal to put in, or to discuss putting in a push button, the flashing lights saying,
oh, yeah.
I'm walking across the street.
Yeah.
So
Would be
the
a great-
county is aware, we brought this up, I've personally brought this up in several of our transportation type meetings. They are aware, they said they more than likely will not be putting in a crosswalk due to the proximity to other crosswalks. But the idea of the flags were brought up. I was driving down a street in Portland, that's a very busy street, very similar. Can't really see a whole lot of cars parked on the side, people walk out and you almost hit them all the time. And I was driving down that the other day and I noticed they have flags at every crosswalk now, in the little buckets. And that idea has been brought up again and again, and we've just been told that's aware. We passed it on to the person who's in charge of this area that takes care of, we're currently working on Buxton.
And they don't have homeless people running around with flags?
No.
What do you mean? They leave them alone. Okay.
But so it is, they're aware of it, and I think it's just, where does it fall on their list of priorities isn't high enough for what I would consider a priority, or many of us, or many of the citizens consider a priority, but they are aware of the issue. It's been brought up almost in every meeting over the last several months, ever since the construction kind of started. And with the opening of the businesses, it's been brought up. So they're aware, it's just a matter of.
Invite them too to come during like traffic hours too, so then try to enter it in all different angles. Because unless you experience it and the confusion and the people not knowing what to do, or if they're gonna take the ride, they're gonna wait for you, and then somebody waves you on, it just, yeah, like I said, it's a short little kid, it's like.
Yeah.
Whose responsibility is it for all of the improvements that were done on Buxton up there?
That's county.
That is
Yeah.
county?
Yeah, Buxton's a county road.
Improvements in quotes.
Yeah, I know.
They're aware of the feedback they've received
Right.
on those as well.
Right.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on to committee comments, and I think I'm gonna start online there. Frank, I'll start with you.
Hey, thanks. The only question I had was at the beginning of the meeting, there was discussion from the minutes about TCAB appointment as an agenda item. Was that confirmed for the next meeting?
I was gonna bring that up on my comment, yeah. That's what Paul's letter was, to just make sure we have it on the agenda, so we have somebody by July 1st, so we have to vote next month.
Yep.
Which sort of lets the new people out, if there are any new people.
Currently, you're the representative.
Yeah,
Yeah, is that a 12-month tour or?
Yeah,
Yes.
it's an annual appointment.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, that was the only question I had.
Thank you. Will?
Hey everyone, apologies for not being there in person tonight. I don't know if it's just a massive allergy attack or a springtime cold, but I am in an upper respiratory mess right now and I didn't want to subject you all to that. So my apologies for that. The only thing I had was the TCAB update, which you all took care of so well. I guess then just a thank you to our guests tonight from HLC and Erica. And then Owen as well, Dakota and Chris Ann for their support as usual. And lastly, just congratulations to the team for the work that was put on the charter adoption tonight, and specifically pointing out Adrian and Chair Harrington for their extra work outside of the meeting to accomplish that. Thank you all, and we'll see you next month.
Thank you, Woodrow.
Good to see everybody. That's what we're doing.
Good, all right.
I'll ditto Will.
yeah.
All right, well, it's good to get the charter thing done, and I certainly appreciate everybody's support in the effort that I put into it, and the whole team put together. It's good to get that off the docket. Now we can get to the real work. The other thing I'll throw out is Parks and Rec thing. June 12th is our next family game day down at the Sandcox building, Glen Auto Park. And that is 9 a.m. to 12:30 and open to the public. So no signups required, just show up and play games.
Thank you. Chris?
I guess, I know we already talked about it pretty extensively, but I guess I'm curious on the TCAB thing, like, why is it the deadline to pick your person is July 1st when the new committee members don't start until the July meeting?
But that's how it's written in the.
That's a quirk of the code.
Yeah.
It's basic, and that's sort of what Paul was calling out.
Yeah, Paul sent that whole thing.
It just seems weird.
And then I guess we didn't have enough members voted in last time.
Yeah, I guess I'll say thanks for a great meeting, and I'm also saying this very jokingly, but I was noticing on the agenda, apparently we're commissioners now.
Yeah, I saw that.
I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, right? Yeah, so I think that's all I have for this time.
Thank you, Shelby.
Okay, I was just gonna say that I think the things that were brought up by Paul Wilcox, perhaps that was just oversight when they wrote the code. I think that's
Yeah.
potentially what I think they meant for the first year, but they didn't correct it, so we follow it, so, anyway. And thank you guys for all the extra effort you guys put in to get this over our charter finish line. Nice to see you again. Nice to see you in person, but nice to see you all. It's good meeting. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Adrian and Twyla, on that charter. You guys really stepped up. And I don't have anything else. Fill you in on town center and parks, and what was my other one? Or if you tapped in, we'll ask him about, is it 1,000 acres?
Ditto, 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 ditto. Thank you, Adrian. I've said that before, and Twyla, and you run a very good meeting, Twyla, also. Thank you very much for that effort. And also to staff, thank you. Doing a great job and representing us well.
Thank you. Then Chris had one more thing to say.
Sorry, I forgot something. So I guess first, I also wanted to share my excitement about adopting the charter, and thank you to Adrian and Twyla. The other thing I was thinking about is, I know we don't all always bring them to the meetings, but I was at home going through some of my papers and organizing things, and I found my binder like Twyla has hers here. And I was noticing some of the papers in it are very outdated that show like the different committees in the council and who's on it, and I was wondering if we could update that.
How many of us actually have a binder? So I'm pretty sure I don't.
You know, I think somebody made these for us years ago when we first started and came on.
Everybody that's new is supposed to get one, but I think there was a little period in there where it didn't happen.
Yeah, I think that's something we could look into.
Yeah, I can talk with Chris Ann about that.
Okay.
Because I know we did some for PC.
Huge.
Huge, very thick, a lot of mainly code. And so I think that's something that we can talk. I can talk to Chris Ann and see if she'd be willing to do that. So I think it's good to everybody to have them.
I thought particularly the Roberts Rule of Order was great as a new committee member, at least years ago, because I've never participated in committees that use those rules, so I was like, what are we doing? And that really helped.
Cool, yeah, I'll talk with Chris Ann.
Well, thank you guys, great meeting. I'm excited, 2 weeks from now, 1 week, 2 weeks, we'll be doing interviews for the committee. So hopefully we'll find some great new members. I know personally in my life, I've started a new job and I'll be traveling more, so hopefully there will be somebody who is dreaming of this seat. Run that through your mind and what it might look like.
So you're saying we can't nominate you again, is that what you're saying?
I would love to share the opportunity for growth. Definitely. Great meeting, good presentations, love to hear what's happening with that historic district. I really hope it moves forward. And thank you and Chris Ann for support. And thank you so much for getting us through with all your work on that charter. And anybody wants to?
Shelby Stephenson, I move that we adjourn.
You knew what I was thinking,
Second.
thank you. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you guys, have a great night.